I met her actually at her bridal shower when she was getting ready to marry Gene, and it's like, who would have a stranger and welcome them to her bridal shower? And the answer, of course, is Pat. We had a lot of trips, we had a lot of tequila, we had a lot of wine, and every story that she told ended up with hysterical laughter, and often fueled by a couple of glasses of something. But we'll all have such a big hole because of her passing. My friend Diane was saying every room was brighter when Pat was in it, and every joke was funnier, and every meal was tastier, and every adventure was more adventurous because she just brought such sparkle and love. I'm not really socially adept, but whenever I was with Pat, she'd be over there grabbing my arm and talking to me and leading me into conversations, and that's just how she was. You from the moment that she met you, and as her family, I know that we'll never forget her.
Steve McLaughlin, you're going to come up and say some words?
Yes, sir.
Do I have to pay you not to say something bad about me?
No, sir. There is one thing here.
I'm sure it is.
My name is Steve McLaughlin. I met Gene 30 years ago this year. And he was working with Howard Hughes. And he gave us a job in the FIB Tower off of Maryland Parkway. And so we started building this office out. And he told us to come out in the corridor and check out our work. Now, does everybody know what a punch list is on a construction job? Well, Gene, and I'm not going to call him Gene anymore because his name's Chakowski, because he's never mentioned my first name. He calls me McLaughlin. So Chakowski, he went out into these corridors, and it was a square in the middle of this building we were working on. We were on about the 19th floor or something. And it was painted with a heavy gloss. And when you look down this corridor, if there was an ant on there, he'd go and he'd take a magic marker and he'd put a big X on it. And that ruined the whole wall that we had to redo. So I have a few things that I'd like to talk to you guys about. That was quite a thing. And then 15 years later, Gene happened to be building a building on the property that I worked for. That meant I might have a punch list on him. So, a couple more years went by and we learned that he had a cabin at Bryan Head and we were living in our cabin at Bryan Head. So here was Jakowski and McLaughlin, and we were all good friends. We met his wife, Pat. We spent a lot of times over there. He'd have a 4th of July party, and we would come to that party. And then Pat retired. When Pat retired, she found out that there was hardly anybody on this whole side of this mountain during the week. And we found out that we were the only ones on this side of this mountain during the week. And she would call us up and say, boy, I'm really cooking something up. She loved to cook. And she'd have us over there. And different types of talk would start between my wife and Pat. And they're both very opinionated. I'm not opinionated. I think life is full of joy, and I don't really, in fact, I don't listen to very much anymore. I just enjoy life. So as they were always talking, I was trying to learn how to get one of those cats to come down the steps. So I practiced cat talks. Do you mind if I show you my cat talk?
Please, please.
I don't know how this is going to happen. Well, Joukowsky, while I was trying to get your cats downstairs, my wife spent many, many hours talking and drinking wine together. It was a wonderful time we had. The only two people on the mountain, although I know I do know some of you in here that you're kind of weekend warriors. So, Gene, we love you and we're so sorry. Okay.
Can I do the preamble for you? This is
Lord.
Bonnie Thompson. She's one of Pat's friends from grade school from Lincoln, Illinois. So she's been one of the special people.
Is this thing, look, can you hear me back there? Yeah, my name is Bonnie, and I actually first met Pat in kindergarten in Lincoln, Illinois. And we were in kindergarten together. Then Patty went to Catholic grade school, and I did not, and we re-hooked up in high school. And then after high school, Patty got married, and then she traveled around the U.S. a lot. So my friends and I would see her mostly at high school reunions. And she would always went to the high school reunions. And it was great to see her. And in 1988, we were at the reunion, and I know I probably had too many Jack Daniels, and everybody else had too many whatevers. And we started talking about the slumber parties that we used to do. And I said, we should do another one. And everybody's like, yeah, that'd be great. Well, I hosted it in Chicago and sent out invitations. And I thought, dear God, I hope people come. There won't just be two girls there, and I knew them the least. There were 10 of us. And the first night we stayed up until 4 o'clock in the morning. And the second night we stayed up until 5 o'clock in the morning. And we had the best time. And since 1988, we have gotten together every single year. And when we did get together, it was Patty who was really the one, we couldn't wait for her to walk in the door because we knew she was going to be funny, outrageous, crazy, and we were going to have a good time. And there are several of us here from that slumber party group, and we've all shed a lot of tears, of course. But now that the initial shock of Pat being gone is over, when I think of her, I smile. And Dr. Seuss, of all people, one time said, and I'm not sure what he was talking about when he said it, but he said, don't cry because it's over, smile because it happened. And I think that's where I am right now. It's like when I think of Patty, I have a smile on my face and I laugh because she was so fun. So about maybe 10 years after that first slumber party, 4 of us from our slumber party group decided to go to Paris together. And I had been there a few times before. The other 3 had not. And it was Patty, Pam, who's going to say a few words next, and Barb and I went to Paris. Well, you can imagine the phone calls are coming in and out, and they're like, what do we bring? Do I need to bring a hairdryer? Will they have robes? What do we wear? I said, well, the French are if you wear black, you're good. They're not real flashy dressers. You want to be discreet because we don't want to stand out because there are pickpockets abound in Paris. So just kind of stay calm. So we all get into O'Hare where we were leaving to go to Paris. I was the last one to get there. I come around the corner to our meeting place and I hear giggling and laughing and I'm like, the girls are here. I looked up. One had on a dark jacket, dark pants. One had on, I'm not going to say it was a hot pink jacket. I'll say it was just like a very pink jacket. And then there was Patty, who looked like the Morton Salt girl. She had on the most yellow slicker I've ever seen in my life, with a hood. It went down to her knees. And I said, what did you all not get about me saying, dress kind of subtly? And Patty said, oh, Gene loves this jacket because he's sure that if I wear this, you will not lose me in Paris. And I said, believe me, that's for sure. So we fly to Paris, check in the hotel, then we go to the metro. And I said, okay, this is Metro 101. I'm going to show you how to navigate the system because we don't all have to go to the same place at the same time. Show them that. Then we went down to the train platform and I said, okay, so if you're on the platform and there are a lot of people around and they're pushing and shoving, and I said, if you're uncomfortable at all, there's always this big red or yellow box with a big red alarm button. So I said, sometimes I go stand there to make sure, if anything happens, I can slap that thing and the gendarme will come. And I said, the other thing is, if by chance, and I know it's not going to happen, if some of us get on the train and the others don't, get off at the next stop and we'll meet you there. I said, I know it's not going to happen, but so you know where this is going. 3 days later, we're out for the day. We go to the metro. Patty's the first one going down the steps. We know the train has come in. We can hear her. All of a sudden, she runs like a bat out of hell down those stairs, and we're like, oh my God. We go running after her. We get down there just in time to see the back of her as she has entered the train and the door is closed. You could have put a train through her mouth. When she turned around, her mouth was like, oh my God. And I know we look the same way at her. And the French are very, they don't show a lot of emotion, and they don't talk on the train or look at anybody or anything. But as the train is pulling out and she's looking at us and we're looking at her, they all start smiling. They're like, oh, we know what just happened here. Well, the other girls were like, oh my God, what are we going to? I said, listen, we had met with Metro 101. She will be at the next stop. So we get on the train about 5 or 6 minutes later. The train pulls into the next station. We're all crouched down trying to see in the window. I have never been so happy to see this little yellow rubber ducky soldier-like person, by God, standing right next to that alarm button. But this was Travels with Patty. It was kind of like Travels with Annie Mae. You knew something funny was going to happen, something strange, possibly get arrested, but it was always good because she was there. So we all miss her, and there's a Frenchman who wrote a little book, a children's book called Le Petit Prince, which we know as The Little Prince. It was written by Antoine de Saint-Exupéry, and it's one of my favorite little things, and I want to read this. Excuse me, I'm a little emotional here. Hard. In one of the stars I shall be living, in one of them I shall be laughing, and so it will be as if all the stars were laughing at you when you look at the sky at night. And I say to all of you, the next time we all look at the sky, you'll see one star that's twinkling brighter than the others. And that's our friend Patty, and she's laughing and looking down, and you know what she's saying? She's saying, I'm okay. I am okay. Now, one more thing. Forgive me for this, but girls back there, are you ready? We have this tradition. Our little slumber party group, when we get together, and we started the first year, and Patty in particular loved this, doing this. We would sing our Lincoln Community High School fight song. And it ain't going to be pretty, I can tell you that. But you know what, Patty, this one is for you. One of you start. Lincoln, we are proud of you. Lincoln, Lincoln, we will ever be true. Following the bright golden rule, we get things done without much ado. We're happy, snappy when we send our call. Lend your shoulders one and all. If your old age should return, I know what he would do. He says, Lincoln, I'm proud of you. Woo!
I think we need an encore on that. This next person is Pam White. It's one of Pat's favorite people also. She was one of the travelers that went with us on our international travels, and she's also a kindergarten friend from kindergarten, so they're pretty well represented from Lincoln, Illinois here.
Well, no matter where we went, Patty was always saying, they'd say, well, are you sisters? And she'd say, no, but we've been friends since we were 5 years old. Our dads worked together, and so we played down at such and such creek. And she'd just go on and on and on about, our history together. And these people were standing there, okay, I don't know if I really care about this, TMI. But Patty helped me grow. She didn't force me, but she encouraged me to do so many things that I never thought I could do. Never thought that I had it in me to be that adventurous. But we had such a good time together, and I know she had friends, and there are so many stories with everybody sitting out here. I'd love to know the stories for each of these pictures that have been shown, because I'm sure we'd have some good laughs with all of that. But what I'm feeling now, since Patty is such a big presence, is that I feel that we're all here, and I'm up here to say, okay, everybody, now settle down, be quiet, because here's what we're going to do. When the limo comes up, we're all going to go outside, and when Patty gets out, we're all going to holler, surprise! And then we're going to have one hell of a fun party, because that's what she did. And all of us being together certainly makes it feel that she should be here. She should be scooting around the corner with a wine glass or helping somebody do this or that. But I know I'm not the only one here that's devastated because she's gone. Because it just doesn't feel right without her. But I thank God every day that she was in my life, and she has really, really made a difference in people's lives and in this world. So we're pretty fortunate.
Hi, I'm Jerry Nisnick, and Pat worked for me for 30 years, or I worked for her for 30 years. I haven't figured it out yet. It's great to see all these trips that she took, but let me tell you, she always did her job, and I never questioned her vacation time or anything that she did. I wouldn't dare. Everybody's talking about what a wonderful person she was, and we all know that. But I'll just tell you, she was a very accomplished person, a very honest, trustworthy person, and I was very fortunate to have her in our lives for so many years. Whatever job I gave her, she did it. Bought a hotel. I said, okay, Pat, I own a hotel. It's your responsibility. okay, Pat, we're gonna build an addition, it's your responsibility. Aerospace, it's your responsibility. So she just took on everything in our lives. I never wrote a check, I never looked at a book, I trusted her implicitly. And we're very fortunate that her daughter Kathy is cut to the same cloth. And really, on behalf of my wife Risa and myself, we owe this woman one big debt for making our lives so much better. She was not shy to give advice to anybody, and a lot of the employees that we had would look on her as a mother or an advisor and would go to her for confidential discussions. She was just that kind of person, and we really were very lucky to have her in our lives for so long. Thank you.
My name is Diane, and I met Patty 15 years ago when my husband went to his first high school reunion, and it turned out to be the 40th high school reunion, but the first time that he'd been to one. And so I went with him and encouraged him to go, and went with him, and didn't know anyone there except him, of course. And we met so many warm, wonderful people from Lincoln, Patty being one of them. And she kind of took me under her wing a little bit just that first night that I met. But at the end of that evening, there was a smaller group of people that stayed and sort of hung around and wanted to talk to each other on a more intimate level than the bigger group. And they sat down in kind of a circular group of chairs, and they were sharing stories and memories about their experiences in high school, and having a lot of jokes and a lot of fun. And my husband didn't remember a lot about high school, so I was really interested because there was a lot he couldn't tell me about his high school experience. And so I was learning about a lot of stuff about him for the first time, even though we'd been married for a long time. So I was just leaning forward, very intently listening to all of this going on. And so later, she told me, she said, I was so fascinated by you, I couldn't take my eyes off it. I'm so sorry. Take my eyes off of you the whole night because you were so interested in our stories, and you didn't know a single person except John. And I said, well, you know, he didn't remember anything about high school much, and so I was really interested in learning. And she was so fascinated by my attention, and she made me feel very special and important. And she did that for everyone she ever met. That was a Patty characteristic. She listened to you, and everyone in this room knows this. I'm not telling you anything you don't know, but she listened to you like you were the only person on this earth. She made you feel very special. She made us all feel like you were the only person that she was interested in. She made every person feel like a member of her family. And that was one of the gifts that she gave to all of us, that she was so in tune. She never knew a stranger. She was so in tune with everyone she met. But since Bonnie brought this up, I have to tell you one more story about Paris. I wasn't with that group that she described, but later on, we got to be really good friends over several years, and later on in 2012, there was a group of 3 people that were going to Paris: Pam, Patty, Esther, and then apparently there was a 4th person that was going to go that couldn't go, or something like that. Anyway, she was trying to think of somebody else to invite, so she called me up and asked if I would be interested in going, and I said, you bet I would. And so we went, and we had a wonderful time. It was the best 2 weeks of my life, almost. I roomed with her the entire 2 weeks, and we took Esther, who also worked for Dr. Niznik's company, but in a different location, in a different kind of way. She had business that she had to do for a couple of days in Zurich, so we took a side trip to Zurich, And I had a good time there, spent a couple of days, and then we were coming back on the train, and we had been doing a little too much shopping for a little too long. And we nearly missed the train, so we're running and running and running to try to get this train back from Zurich to Paris. And so we all have our little suitcases that we're dragging behind us, and we realize that we're not going to get to our assigned car quite quickly enough as they're trying to board the train and go away. So we got in the nearest door, but you have assigned seats on these trains. So I said so Pam was in the lead. Well, Esther had seats in a different car, but Pam was in the lead. Patty was next, and then I was bringing up the rear. And so Pam would go through the doors. They had those doors that close automatically. And so Pam would go, they would open when Pam got there. Pam would go through the door, Patty would go through the door, but Patty was like not quite quick enough. So every time we'd go through a door, the door would close on her suitcase. And so so I try to get the door open for her, and then she's tugging and tugging and tugging on that suitcase. So we did that for about 6 cars. Every time we got to the door, Pam would go through, Patty would go through, her suitcase would get stuck. Finally I said, Patty, you need to go a little quicker through the door so your suitcase, and she turns around and she says, okay, Mother. But that was Patty. We had a great time, and she was such a generous, giving, wonderful person, and she enriched my life, as I'm sure she enriched all of yours.
Hi everybody, thanks for coming. It's good to see this kind of turnout too. It's really, really great thing. I didn't even want to get up here, but I found out the video wasn't going to be on there in case some of you guys don't see it. I have to do that for Mom, I really do. It's about her, and I did this video, and I don't remember exactly what was on it, but the main thing I do, there's really only 2 types of people in this world when I get down to it. There's ones I want to be like, and then there's ones I don't want to be like. Oh, sorry. And but they're equally important because they're sending me a valuable message, And we were a lot alike in a lot of ways, but in a lot of ways we weren't, I don't think she got in trouble much, really, when it boiled down to it. I got in a little bit of trouble, But, and since 1963, if you were born after 63, I knew her longer than anybody else. If you were born 63 or after, And that's what was so hard about it, accepting the fact that she's gone, because for every day of my life, 55 years, plus she's there every day, every day. And everything I've heard that you guys have said is so true, I learn more about her every day. And the thing, I kept trying to dial her phone, because I talked to her a lot, and she was my advisor. And she was a lot, she taught me a lot, more than anybody else has ever taught me. And she loved her flowers, she loved her gardens and stuff, so I figured, we'd figured out that I owed her so much that there was no way I was ever going to be able to pay her back. So I did these things like I do their digging for her, and she did it, twice a year, she was really, her flowers were a lot to her, and so it's the least I could do is go and dig the holes and stuff and everything, and now I make flowers, like wooden flowers. I like to dabble in art, and I find myself making flowers all the time, and I know that's from her, I make them out of wood and coconut, and she liked this stuff as much as I did. And when I had a friend, they were talking about McLaughlin or the last names, I had a couple of friends that I only called by last name, and Mom would always say, well, how's Elliot doing? That's his last name. You get Scary Elliot, and Matt Harwell. And how's Elliot and Harwell doing? She just became a part of whoever she was around, and she really did make everybody feel really special, and so I gained that from her. I gained the positiveness that she had in her, and I'm really thankful for that. Last thing, I had a resentment against her for 30 years. When she divorced, my father and her divorced, I was really, really mad. I was upset about it. It was traumatic for me. And so I kind of carried this resentment. We still had a very good relationship and talked all the time, but I had a resentment that she took away my perfect life, really, and by divorcing my father. And then one of my spiritual mentors to this day, I met him I think I met him in 2001, and his name is Randall Jones, and he was one of 13 children, right? And he told me his life story. We told each other our life story. And he said that his parents never once, not one time, told him that they loved him. And my mom constantly told me, I mean, every day, multiple times a day, you know, she was taking me to practice, she was doing, you know, whatever sport it was, she was there, and then never not there, you know, and it's incredible. I'm really fortunate to have had her as my mother, you know, and because I've seen some that aren't so fortunate, you know, and so it makes me really thankful, you know, and she's given me that, to be thankful and giving. You know, you really only feel it when you give it, and I found that out too, you know, because she was giving, and you know, I found that in order for me to be more peaceful with myself, I have to get out myself, you know, and that's by helping others. I'm not saying that I do that all the time, but she did, and she knew, you know, what the core important things were in life, you know, was to help others, and she was always happy. So there was something there, you know, but if I took nothing else from her except for the positiveness, I would be happy with that, you know, because she really, that helps me get through things that maybe I might not have, you know, if it wasn't for her positive attitude. But thanks again for coming. It's good to see everybody. Thank you.
Hello, I'm Brandy. I'm Pat's niece. She wasn't my mom, but you know, she may well have been. I can remember when I was about 10 years old. My parents had been fighting. I called and I'm like, you know, Mom and Dad are fighting. What do I do? And all she said was, you know, they do love you. They don't intentionally ignore you. And just know that your Uncle Gene and I are always here if you need us. And as Uncle Gene stated, you know, she kind of rescued me. I was in a lot of trouble when I came up 8 years ago. And I was a young mom with my son, and she gave me a ton of advice, and most of it I took. Some of it I was kind of like, well, you know, but that's what she did. She gave you advice, and if you didn't take it, she didn't take offense. And I can remember we were going to head out to this trip, and we went into the master bath, and she's given me this makeover, and she made me realize that I am a beautiful woman, and I could be who I wanted to be no matter what type of relationship I was in. And I had to learn rather quickly that my son had to take precedence over myself. And she was just that instant positivity in my life, and I'll never forget that. And my favorite song by Fleetwood Mac, it kind of hits right here. It's "The river goes on, but the sea that divides us is a temporary one, and the bridge will bring us back together." So I'm hoping someday I'll get to cross that bridge and see her smiling and give her that great big hug. Thank you.
Anybody else? Come on. Riley, all right. This is Pat's grandson, Riley.
Hey everybody, my name's Riley. I wrote some notes down, but I don't think I'm going to use that. Me and my Pat, she was very outgoing, she was very special, and she was always positive. For me, I always trusted in her a lot, and we always tried to go to lunch about every other month. She obviously wanted to make it every week, but me being a kid, I had other things I wanted to do, and I would tell her things that I wouldn't tell my mom, just because I knew how trustworthy she was, and she was also a really good cook. Whenever we would go to dinner at her house, I would always want to be the one that sat next to her. And there would sometimes me and my brother would spend the night at me, Ma, Pat, and Jean's house on the weekends. And in the morning, we would always ask if we could go to get some Krispy Kreme donuts. And she was really happy and reluctant to take us. And sometimes we would go to this really cool museum that had some cool learning stuff. And one other time, she also took us to a parking lot where we did donuts in her car for about 3 minutes straight while me and Chandler are just laughing hysterically. Oh crap, is Jean still in the room? I didn't know that. Yeah, that's all I have to say. Thanks everybody for caring so much.
So my name is Liz McNabb. I know I've met some of y'all, but I haven't met everybody. But I was Pat's PT back 11 years ago, and that's when we met. And
What's a PT?
oh, physical therapist. Sorry. So I rehabbed her shoulder when she fell when she was working for Nesnick. She fell at I think a condo, and her story was. Well, there's a cuss word in it, so I don't know if I should say it with kids here, but she comes in and she's like, that FBT, which is F blue tarp, because she tripped over it and fell on her shoulder, and that's how she tore her rotator cuff. So rotator cuff is in the muscles in the shoulder. So we rehabbed her. She did really well. She was one of my favorite patients because she always made me laugh. The whole time we were laughing. We had a private room where I'd work on her and massage her shoulder, stretch her. And if anybody's had rotator cuff repair, it's a good 4 to 6 months of rehab. And she was very committed. And I think she enjoyed coming just because we got to laugh about different things. But there is one story that I have to bring up that I remember every day from her. She had that quirky personality, and she always liked to sneak in little dirty remarks at times. And so, like, I'm working on the back of her shoulder, and I'm like, yeah, you have a lot of knots in your shoulder. And she's like, yeah, I'm really naughty. And I literally could not stop laughing that I had to stop what I was doing. And she's like cracking up, like, that's so funny. And so our joke every time she come to therapy was, am I naughty today? So it just, that was like my first week I was working with her, so she opened up so quickly. And then she went through her rehab and got her full shoulder motion back, and she was funny because we just had a relationship that was friends, but then over time it would build, and she would invite me over to her house, and they cooked dinner, her and Jean, and then it started being holidays. She wanted me to come over, and so I mean, it just kind of built over time. And my relationship, unfortunately, with my mom is not very close, and so, you know, Pat and Jean were kind of like a second parent to me, and she would joke all the time and say, well, you're my adopted daughter. You know, it was one of those relationships I've never had in my life, and I never saw it coming. So, but she did a lot she did that for me, and I just was her physical therapist. I can imagine friends from kindergarten, and then her kids and her grandkids and everything. So I just had to put that in there. But she was one that I always called about whatever I needed, and then she'd call me. So it was a great relationship. And with her passing, you know, I didn't think it was going to hit me as hard as it did, and it hit me a lot harder than I ever imagined. But I try to remember all the things that she did give me, and the times that we had good times. She was able to attend my wedding in Mexico, and she said that was one of her favorite trips because Gene came with her, and she would always say, Gene doesn't want to travel much, but he came to this one. So it was great. So I had some really good lasting memories of her, and that's where I'm going to try to go with her. So appreciate everybody that's come up to me and said, oh, I remember her talking about you a little bit. So thanks for that.
Hi, everybody, and welcome. The people here, it's unbelievable. That's how many people she touched. What a great thing. I got to tell you a story. When my girlfriend, Betty, arrived here, I came in shorts. And I turned around and went back to change. And because I was thinking, I go, Pat always used to tease me about wearing shorts, but you always wear shorts in the wintertime. Aren't you ever cold? And I thought to myself, she would have thought it would have been okay with me walking in with my shorts. And Betty was telling me, why didn't you do it? I go, I don't know, everybody's dressed are so nice. I don't know if I should. But anyway, the first time I met Pat, I'm gonna go back to '92. She just started in the office, and I remember it was the first day, and she had to stay real late to do some paperwork, run to the computer. It was like 5 o'clock, and I was on my way out. And I said, would you like me to help you? Can I stay and help you? Oh, no, you don't have to. So I stayed and helped her. We were there for maybe an hour helping her with this paperwork. And we started talking. And that's where we made a connection. Her personality, her dirty jokes. It's unbelievable. But anyway, one thing about Pat that I'm going to miss, she was always here for me. I remember when I got in a motorcycle accident, the first person I called was her. Gene and her were there like that. I was in the couch, they came in, they took me. I said, no, I'm fine. He goes, no, you're not fine. We're taking you to the hospital. So they took me to the hospital, and I was all scraped up and everything, and she stayed there till the end, so did Gene. And, but she was always there when I needed her. She was there. And all you had to do is pick up the phone and say, hey, I'm in trouble. No questions asked, she was there. And she was there for me. And I'm gonna miss that. But anyway, thank you all for being here.
Anybody else? Going once? Going twice? I do want to thank everybody for being here. It's a tribute to Pat. There's still a lot of food. Let's eat it up. We're here till 8:30. And I do thank all the out-of-towners, everybody that has spoken. There's other friends that have come in later. Thank you guys for showing up. We really appreciate it. Judy Sabalka and Eddie over there. I see Mike Dunn back there. Thank you, Mike. All of you have been special. Marnie and group back there. So, anyway, we're here till 8:30. Again, the flowers and stuff like that are to be taken. If you would, please take those. Oh, you guys want to talk? Is that why you're waving at me? Thought I didn't know you were here.
We just like you, but we wanted to.
We're gonna have the sister duo come up here and talk. Pat had a very, I'm not sure many of you probably knew that Pat was adopted, and she really didn't know who her family were, but these are actually blood relatives of hers. Is that correct? That's correct. She was able to find that relationship, and it was really a special relationship. She was always interested in family, as you can tell, because she augmented that with all the rest of you as her family.
Well, as you know, Pat grew up in Lincoln, Illinois, and we grew up in Peoria, Illinois. So we knew her from, how old would you say?
Long time.
Yeah.
Almost as long as y'all.
Yeah, probably since 3 or 4 years old, all of us. But our families would get together, and so we've been through a lot with Pat. And she was so many, there were so many things we admired about Pat. She was not only our cousin, but a great friend. And Pat always had a smile on her face, even though we knew she was in pain lots of times. Everyone loved Pat. Pat was just, all the people were just drawn to Pat like a magnet. She was devoted to her family and found a special love with Jean. 1,000%. We will miss her always.
Well, there's every single person in here would say she's never met a stranger. And she, as a relative and a friend, she was there for us always. She was always there for me through all my marriages, all my relationships, and we talk about it, and she'd give me advice, and I'd give her advice, and we spent hours on the phone, which I know she did with many of you as well. I stood up when Pat and Jean got married with them, and she stood up with me when I got married, and those kinds of memories are, I just thought would last forever. She would always be here. When we were young, she was just sophisticated and so pretty and so outgoing and so spontaneous that I always wanted to emulate her. So as we grew older, I think we were friends more than relatives. I have a couple of quick stories. When we were kids, they would come and visit us, and we were very young, and we were playing in this kind of a cart thing, and like a teeter-totter thing, we were going back and forth, and I jumped out, and the darn old cart almost fell over, but what neither of us knew was that there was a snake in there, and the snake fell almost on her. Well, they never came to visit for several years after that, but that was always a story that she remembered that scared the daylights out of her. And the other story, besides many loving memories, is I remember one time my husband and I came to Vegas, and we were getting together, and she said, "Now, I'm going to meet you at the back of the hotel." And I thought, that's so strange. Why would we do that? Can't we just meet you at the front? And she was very insistent, so we stood out there in the back on the loading dock and wondered what was going to happen. But what she had done was get a limousine for us. And that's where she was coming to pick us up and took us on a whole tour of Vegas and just made it very special. Not like your average tourist. We were in a limo with Pat. So I kind of would like to just offer a little prayer for her because she was so important to us. O God of grace and glory, we remember before you this day our sister Pat. We thank you for giving her to us, her family and friends, to know and to love as a companion on our earthly pilgrimage. In your boundless compassion, console us who mourn. Give us faith to see in death the gate of eternal life, so that in quiet confidence we may continue our course on earth until, by your call, we are united with those who have gone before. Through Jesus Christ our Lord. Amen. Thank you.
Well, I learned two things here. I didn't realize she was married once before me. The kids are immaculate conceptions, as I understood. So she told me that. Anybody else? If not, we're going to turn the music back on, and thank you all for coming. It's been a pleasure and a real genuine respect for Pat, and I know she's smiling down at us.